What's going on, guys? Seth here from Team Union Seth. As you can see on screen, I am here as your coach of the Philadelphia Spearows in, I guess we'll call it Season 2.5 of the RPL, or our Little Cup Offseason League. So, we have seen a few, I'm sure you guys have seen a few Little Cup Offseason Leagues in the past with UCL and APA, that kind of stuff. So, we decided that we were thinking about starting up RPL Season 3 pretty soon. So as you guys are seeing this, it is early September, early to mid-September. We were thinking about starting up RPL around this time, RPL Season 3. However, with the new Sword and Shield games coming up, we decided that it would be better to do a little short league/tournament kind of thing now, and then put off RPL Season 3 until we get a little bit of a metagame established with the new Sword and Shield Mons and how everything is going to work there. So, with that being said, we do have a Little Cup draft for RPL Season 2.5, as we'll call it. So, now, I don't really know much at all about Little Cup. I've played a little bit of Little Cup on Showdown. I built a few teams, I think, a long time ago. Occasionally, when it comes up on Battle Factory, I'll play it. But other than that, I mean, I've watched pretty much all of the leagues that have done Little Cup off seasons or Little Cup leagues, anything like that. I've watched a decent amount of them. But other than that, I really have no experience with Little Cup with the tier itself. So that being said, I did a little bit of research and took the knowledge that I know in general and just kind of went and rolled with it. So overall, as you guys will see my team, I'm pretty happy with the mons I got, and I'm really, really excited for this season to see how everything is going to play out. So we're going to get into the draft analysis. So how the draft worked is everyone got to pick 11 mons. We included some mons that are like LC Ubers in Smogon. So we had an S tier, so everyone could get one S tier, and if they use an S tier, or if they drafted an S tier, they would lose 60 of their 460 total free points. So that being said, everyone had one S/A tier, another A tier, two B tiers, three C tiers, and then 4 free mons they could spend any way they would like. So that's what, 2, 4, 7, yeah. That's what it was. So that is what we were allowed to draft. And so basically the way it worked is if you drafted an S tier, your frees had to be, I think it was like an A, a B, and 2 Cs. And then if you didn't draft an S tier, if you went with another A instead, you could have gotten like another like 2 A's, a B, and a C, something like that. So that's how the draft went. But we had the 7th pick in the draft. There are 14 teams competing in this offseason league, and we had the 7th overall pick. It is a snake draft, so I was very much in the middle. I'm not a huge fan of being in the middle, but it ended up not being too bad. As our first pick, we got Gothita. So Gothita is cool, and it was an S tier mon. It's cool because it has Shadow Tag, so I can trap mons with it. It's also decently bulky and is pretty powerful in general. So I was actually pretty happy to get Gothita. I can use it as a decent pivot. It can definitely disrupt some things. Now, Little Cup is more of an offensive format, not so much bulky, so I can potentially trap some offensive threats that can't do a whole lot to Gothita. However, usually trapping is more to trap like a threat or something that's super bulky that can beat most of your team, but not things like the Gothita or Gothitelle if you're playing normal standard formats. So Gothita will be used to trap some threats and potentially get rid of them if I can. Somewhat as a pivot. It also gets Trick Room, which is nice in this format because things do like to go pretty fast on offensive, so turning that against them can be pretty nice. So I was happy with the Gothita pick. I think I can play pretty well with it, and I'm looking forward to using it. Our next pick, we went with Munchlax. Now, I didn't really plan out a whole lot of my draft. I more decided to go with good mons that I thought are good mons that were on the board, things that I wanted to use, and basically building upon what I already had on the team. So with Gothita, I knew that I wanted something that could hit hard, and I knew that I could draft, if I went with Munchlax because it's only weak to fighting, that Gothita is obviously resistant to fighting, so Gothita can potentially come in, trap a fighting mon, which are very common in the Little Cup tier, and take out a threat that would otherwise be very detrimental to Munchlax. So Munchlax was a cool pick. Munchlax is an excellent Little Cup mon because it gets the Recycle Berry Juice strategy, and it also has Sorry. It gets the Recycle Berry Juice strategy, and it's also just really strong. So it's bulky, it's fat, it's really strong. So I'm really looking forward to using Munchlax in a couple of different ways. It can be used defensively, it can be used offensively. As I mentioned, Trick Room is a thing, so Munchlax has a whopping base 5 speed. So setting up a Trick Room with Gothita or some mons that you'll see down the road can be really cool, and this thing could potentially be a nice Trick Room sweeper. It also gets really good coverage as a normal type, so that is also something to be on the lookout for. Our next pick, we went with Marini. Now, at this point, I was thinking, all right, I have Gothita, which covers Munchlax's fighting type weakness. However, that leaves me a bit weak to Knockoff. I also had, obviously, a Bug, Dark, and a Ghost weakness with Gothita. Munchlax covers the Ghost type, and Marini now covers that Bug type, which is something that I was really excited about. We also have Gothita to cover Marini's Psychic type weakness, as well as so that leaves us with a Ground weakness and then an Electric weakness as well at this point. So, that being said, Marini is also an excellent LC Mon. We did dip into our second A tier Mon. The way I drafted was I went S, A, B, B. I think I drafted a third B. I think so, yeah, and then my 5C Mon. So I just went in order of the tiers. I didn't really see anything that I really wanted to grab from lower tiers before I finished those higher tiers, so I did just decide to go that route, and Marini was just, it was too good not to pick up. It's so bulky, it's so hard to break. Getting Recover, Regenerator, being so bulky, it's just a really good mon overall. It also gives me Toxic Spikes. Hazards are super important in this format as well, so I was really looking forward to grabbing a couple decent hazard mons. Now, as you'll see once we round out the entire team, my hazard support is not incredible, but I did want to make sure I got at least a few good mons that could set up some hazards. So that is what we did, and Marini, I'm really excited to use it. I think Marini is something that really fits my playstyle well, so even just with that, I'm really looking forward to using this thing. Our next pick, our first B tier pick, was Pancham. Now, I will admit, I thought Pancham was Dark type when I picked it at the time. However, it's only Fighting type. Only Pangoro is Fighting and Dark. However, Pancham is still a really good mon. I believe it still gets priority with the Bullet Punch. I'm pretty sure it still gets Knockoff, and it just hits pretty hard in general. So, and I also believe it still gets Parting Shot. So a lot of things that Pangoro is good at, Pancham is also good at, and has some pretty decent base stats. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like I said, Pancham is a good fighting type. I would have maybe preferred to get something a bit faster in terms of fighting types, so that might be something that you see me do in free agency a little bit. Yeah, this is probably the most questionable mon on my team, at least for me. So, I like Pancham. I think it's a good mon. I think it's a quality piece of the team. However, I think there could be things that could potentially do a little bit better. So, definitely be on the lookout for that. But, I mean, it gets good coverage. Like I said, it hits pretty hard, and I mean, it's just a decent mon overall. So, would I have picked it this high if I had known that it wasn't a Dark type? Probably not. But am I super upset with the pick? Definitely not. It can still be a valuable asset to the team, and I am looking forward to using it if I end up keeping it on the team. Next up, we had Rhyhorn. Now, I wanted some bulk on the team. So, going back to my weaknesses, this covers my Electric weakness now. And then with Pancham, I got another Psychic weakness, so I didn't realize that at the time. I thought it was Dark type. However, that brings me another Psychic weakness, also brings me a Flying weakness and a Fairy weakness. Now, the Fairy weakness is covered in Marini. The Flying weakness is now covered in Rhyhorn, as well as our Electric weakness from the Marini as well. It also helps cover, it also gives me another weakness to fighting. However, we do have 2 fighting resistances with the Marini and the Gothita. So you can see kind of my logic as I was going through this draft was covering up previous mons' weaknesses, drafting some decent bulky mons and some good offensive mons as well. Rhyhorn is definitely on the slower side, so again, you might see some Trick Room options throughout the season. It also gives me Stealth Rock, and just gives me a really powerful attack in general. I mean, with Rock Blast and Earthquake, those two moves, those two stabs are going to be very, very useful for Rhyhorn going down the stretch. And again, as I said, having those Stealth Rocks are going to be critical in getting some kills in terms of just wearing down the opponent's team. So Stealth Rocks, very important. I thought Rhyhorn was a really good mon at the time, and I'm definitely happy I picked it up and looking forward to using this mon as well. Next on the list, we have Axew. Now, this is probably my favorite pick of the draft. I knew I wanted a solid dragon type, and I was thrilled to see that Axew dropped to past 2 rounds of B tier. So, as the 6th pick in this draft, I was incredibly happy that Axew landed here with a base 87 attack for an LC Mon is pretty good. So, this thing is also going to be really good using Z moves, so potential Dragonium Z or something like that is going to be very, very useful with this Mon. It can also Dragon Dance, which is excellent. I believe this thing also gets Swords Dance. So Axew is just super powerful. I knew I wanted a Dragon type because there are a limited amount of good fairies in the format. And if I'm not, I know Haxorus gets Poison Jab. I'm not sure if this thing gets Poison Jab. However, if it does, that's pretty good for in terms of fairy killer. Now again, we see another fairy weakness, which that gives me 2 and only the 1 resistance in the Marini. It also gives me a dragon weakness, which I do not have a resistance to yet, and I don't think I actually picked one up throughout the draft. And an ice weakness, which Rhyhorn also has an ice weakness, but Marini has that resistance. I can potentially have a resistance with Thick Fat Munchlax. And this also gives me a water resistance, as Rhyhorn is weak to water, and Marini also resists. Now I have 2 water resistances and 2 water resistances and only 1 weakness. So that is pretty nice too. Next up, we picked up Blitzle. Now I was noticing that my team was getting pretty slow, so I did want to start picking up some speed, and Blitzle gives me just that. So base 76 speed hits, I believe it's 19 or 18. It hits 18. Hits 18 speed in Little Cup, and it also gives me some Volt Switch. So Pancham with the Parting Shot, I'm pretty sure, is a little bit of momentum. I also get the Volt Switch from Blitzle. Now, Blitzle's move pool is not amazing. You're mainly going to be running things like, if you're running physical, you're thinking Wild Charge. If you're running special, you're thinking Volt Switch, Thunderbolt. It gets things like Signal Beam. I'm pretty sure it gets Overheat. You can run Hidden Powers. So nothing crazy. It also gets Flame Charge, which can potentially boost its speed or agility, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It also gets Pursuit. But this thing's main job is, it gives me another electric immunity. So in terms of Marini, helping that thing out is really nice. Now that does give me a ground weakness, and I'm definitely stacking up on the ground weaknesses as of now, as you can see. So I'm going to have to patch that up later on, and that was kind of a common theme that I was trying to fix throughout the back half of my draft, was patching up some ground weaknesses. But it does give me a second electric immunity, which is really nice for Marini, and it only gives me that 1 weakness in ground. So that was pretty nice. It also gives me another flying resist, which is pretty cool too. So not too much to say on Blitzle. I am glad I picked it up. I like the speed tier. I like that it gives me some speed. My team is pretty slow, as you guys will see overall, so it's definitely not the fastest, but this does get me up there a little bit and can be a pretty decent Scarfer if I really need it to. So that is also another option. Next up, we have Phantom. So as I mentioned, those ground weaknesses were starting to stack up, and I actually wanted Shroomish, but that got picked. I'm pretty sure the same round that I ended up picking Phantom up, but I knew it was either going to be Shroomish. If not Shroomish, then I would get Phantom, and I am definitely happy with this pick. I like that it gets Harvest, so I can potentially use berries. Now, I know it doesn't work for Berry Juice, but it is what it is. Maybe run an Oran Berry or something like that. But Harvest is nice. Frisk is one of the best abilities in the Draft League format, which is really nice to be able to have that. And then its other ability is Natural Cure. So I can potentially use this as a status absorber, switch out, get healed, and then be good to go. It also gets Leech Seed, which is excellent. Leech Seed is just a really good move in general. Will-O-Wisp, and it gives me another Trick Rumor. So as you can see, that packs on another Ghost weakness and another Dark weakness. So Pancham resisting Dark is okay. I have Munchlax to be immune to the Ghost, but those are definitely 2 things that I have to be wary of as we go on in the draft. That also gives me a Fire weakness, which is easily covered by the rest of my team in Rhyhorn, potentially Munchlax, Marini, and Axew. Flying weakness covered by Blitzle and Rhyhorn. It does give me, I do also have 2 flying weaknesses, but I have the 2 resistances, and then I believe that is it. With the Ghost typing, it does eliminate a few of the grass weaknesses, such as Bug and Poison, so that's pretty nice in general. Next up, we have the Purloin. Now, I was really excited about this pick. This is a great utility mon, as well as it gives me more momentum in U-turn. So this thing can taunt, this thing can pursuit, this thing can knock off, it can sucker punch. Like I said, it can U-turn, it can thunder wave. This thing can do a lot of different things. So I was really excited to pick up Purloin. It gives me a psychic immunity, so that helps out Marini a lot. It also gives me that dark and ghost resist that I've really been looking for. So those are some really nice things. Now bug, I don't have a problem with. I have the Rhyhorn, I have Marini, I have Pancham. And then fairy, I have Marini. My fairy resists are not great, but like I said, in terms of offensive fairies, you're not going to see a ton in the LC format. And then even defensive fairies, you're not going to see a lot in general. But it is something to be wary of just in case. And then the last weakness, fighting. I do have a few fighting weaknesses in the Munchlax, in the Rhyhorn, and now the Purloin. However, I do have a resistance in the Marini, a resistance in the Gothita, and an immunity in the Phantom. So not really too concerned in that area. So I was really excited to get Purloin, and I think this is going to be a really, really valuable utility mon, a really good asset to the team in general. Next up, our second to last pick, we went with Cyndaquil from the C tier. So I needed a fire type at this point. There were a few types that I didn't have. I didn't have a steel type, but I think Beldum was the only thing in C tier that was steel. There might have been one or two, but they weren't very good. I know that for a fact if there were. And it was a steel type, and I was considering a fairy type. Like I said, there really weren't any good fairy types, especially in C tier. In A or B, I think there were a couple of decent fairy types, but once we got to C, it was really like squat. I was considering Togepi, but I think that got picked. I'm not even sure what else there was. I think the draft was like 2 weeks ago at this point. It was about a week ago. Actually, I think it was a week ago as of now, like 8 days ago as of now when I'm recording this. So I was like, I'd prefer a fire type. I like having a fire type. Now, if you notice, my hazard removal, I think up to this point is actually non-existent. Yeah, I don't actually have any hazard removal as to this point. However, this is my first mon that I drafted that is actually weak to hazards. So it's weak to Stealth Rock. Everything else is okay. I have a grounded poison type in Marini. And everything else doesn't really care about hazards that much unless I'm really trying to switch a ton, which I don't really plan on because it is a pretty offensive format, so switching and trying to bulk out a lot of hits is not going to be the best strategy. So this is really my only hazard weak mon, and the rest of the team doesn't really care about hazards that much. So I like having the fire type. Cyndaquil is pretty strong. It gives me a decent speed tier hitting 17 at max. So it's a little bit on the faster side, as well as Purloin hit that 17 spot as well. So now I have an 18 and two 17s, which is kind of nice. So just wanted a fire type in general. I think it was between this and, I don't remember, there was another fire mon that I was debating, but I ended up going with Cyndaquil just because I like it. I think it's a good mon, and I think it's going to be pretty strong and a decent threat in the format in general. And last but not least, my final pick was Swablu. Now, Swablu, I didn't want another normal type. However, I needed another ground immunity. As I picked up Cyndaquil, it gave me another ground weakness. So now I have Rhyhorn, Blitzel, Marini, and Cyndaquil all weak to ground. And I didn't want to allow my opponent the opportunity to Earthquake spam me. So I did go with Swablu just to have that threat there of a mon that can be immune to flying, or immune to ground. That's basically the only reason I picked Swablu, is to be immune to ground. It is pretty decent. It is a cleric. I'm pretty sure it does get some decent coverage moves as well, and can be a decent support mon. So there are going to be matchups for it. However, its main job is to be immune to Earthquake, is basically its main job, so that I don't have to rely solely on Phantom to take on ground types. And that's why I picked Swablu. And again, there really wasn't much in terms of mons left in C tier. Like, the C tier was pretty crappy at this point, with the last pick coming around, especially with 14 teams. So there wasn't a whole lot to pick with, to go with. I was thinking I want a ground immunity, so I just went with Swablu. It is what it is. Pretty decent mon. It can potentially surprise some people, so you might end up seeing a setup or offensive Swablu at some point, but that is it. Here is the team. You can see our Philadelphia Spearows for the RPL Offseason, RPL Season 2.5. So let me know what you guys think of the team. I think the team is pretty decent. For my first Little Cup draft, I am not upset with this team at all. I really like the Gothita pick. I think it's going to be something good to build around. Munchlax and Marini are fantastic LC mons. I was really happy to get things like Axew and Purloin, and then having things like Phantom, Rhyhorn, and Blitzel are really nice for support in general. So I am pretty happy with this team. I don't think it's the best team, but I definitely don't think it's the worst team. I think I could have done a little bit better, but for my first draft and for not going in with too much of a plan, I am pretty happy with this team in general. So again, let me know what you guys think of the team. Oh, you can't even see Axew. I apologize. Let me know what you guys think of the team. Comment down below. Please subscribe if you like my content. There will be more content out, especially with Sword and Shield coming. So be on the lookout for that. Get excited. Content is definitely going to take a step up as we're getting into Sword and Shield. Sorry. But yeah, subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the team. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.